Over the last few years, artificial intelligence tools have been classified as either co-pilots or assistants, but what is the next step? We're already seeing AI agents that might be able to do more things independent of human inputs, but then what? We're going to talk about the next phase of the digital employee on this episode of Today in Tech. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Gu Rao. He is the co-founder of Newbird. Welcome to the show, Gu.
Thanks for having me, Keith. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, just a little bit of a background in terms of why we're doing this episode. There were some statistics that were sent recently that says that there's been a 20% decrease in computer and information science graduates, which is indicating that in some technology spaces, there's a shortage of skilled talent that is trying, to keep up with companies' demands. And so, your company and others are saying that this is going to lead to the development of digital employees that will work independently alongside human employees in the, and I'm going to use this in quotes, the office of the future. So what I wanted to ask you first is, what is your definition of this term digital employee? Because I've heard it kind of, mixed in with what these next AI agents are going to be doing. So can you tell me what's the difference between a digital employee, an AI agent, and then a more traditional chatbot from what we're dealing with now?
Well, let's start with the latter first, right? Chatbots are a way for you to have a conversation with existing information, but really the person using the chatbot is still a human engineer. I think the concept behind digital employees are what you call agents. We call them agentic workflows now. These are distinctly different in the sense that they're meant to supplement the job functions that human engineers are performing, usually in an automated fashion. In my definition, they mimic the thought process of a human engineer, especially at what we do at Newbird, by leveraging the reasoning capabilities that exist in these LLMs. What I'm trying to say is you're not really having a chat with anything. You're having the LLMs reason with the problem at hand to do the work that a human engineer would do, not to necessarily take their job. Because of reasons you cited, there's just a shortage in the number of employees that can do some of this skilled labor. So what that means is you want to let humans do what they're better at doing, which is be more creative. When it comes to some of the mundane, easy, boring tasks, especially in engineering, when it comes to dealing with what we do, IT telemetry, it's easier to let digital employees deal with it. And that's what we're doing here at Newbird by leveraging large language models to do that.
Okay, I don't want to get into a commercial for Newbird just exactly, but can you give an example of where a digital employee would do something different than what you might even see with an agentic workflow?
Well, in my mind, agentic workflows are an implementation of digital employees, so they kind of accomplish the same thing. And what this in all these cases, what happens is you either have specialized runbooks for the job function at hand. So if it's dealing with IT telemetry, that's a certain runbook. You can have agentic workflows for anything, for creating marketing material, for being like a sales SDR. There are companies focused on that. And what their digital employees do is they leverage models that have been trained for that specific job function, and they do a very good job at that. They bring an element of creativity. It's not repetitive. It's not traditional AI in the sense that there's an element of unpredictability, but that's kind of what you want. You want that variability that humans would have brought in. In my opinion, that's what digital employees do.
Is this digital employee able to think of things if they don't have that knowledge in their database? And or that large language model, every time I hear about AIs trying to think, it's like, well, they can only give the answers based on the data that they've been trained on, correct? They're not going to, I'm not sure if an AI is ever going to be able to quote unquote think outside the box the way that a human does, but it does feel like this might get us closer, right? Because I've seen some of the stuff that you guys are doing, and it does feel like that a digital employee can actually come up with the solution to a problem if it hadn't seen this before, right? Or am I way off?
No, you're not.
Okay.
It's not magic. The
okay.
Models can create a novelty only from what they know and what they've been trained on. See, here's the difference in how people need to approach digital agents. It's not, you can't just say, what is a digital agent going to do for me? You have to say, what can I do with it? And it's a two-way street. And unlike other pieces of software where you can just say the software is going to run in an automated fashion on its own and you kind of know what it's going to do, you have to change your mentality because the agent needs to augment itself. And this is where the term augmentation comes in. You've heard of the term retrieval-based augmented generation. What does that mean? Well,
Yeah.
there's some extra content and extra context that's being provided to the agent so that it can do more work other than what it only knows. If you just use a model for what it only knows, that's all you're going to get. So in all of these cases, with anybody building digital agents, what are they doing? They're finding ways to augment it with domain-specific information, which, by the way, can be another person. So you have to change your mentality in how you deal with digital agents in the sense that you may need to help it. You may need to provide it some information so it can do better work. And I think we're going to live in that world where you're working alongside digital agents and it's not a one-way street. The agent will come in, seek help from its human coworkers saying, I'm stuck over here, or there's some information I need so I can make further progress.
Does that mean that these are going to, that the lines are going to get blurred between a regular employee and a digital one, or is it going to be pretty obvious, at least in the short term?
Look, I can't generalize this because we're this whole space is evolving together.
Yeah.
In all honesty, people are approaching this from all ends of the spectrum. There are your skeptics who don't believe in it. There are people that completely embrace it and want these agents to be more autonomous, and anywhere in between. So to answer your question, and look, I can parse your question in a number of different ways, but I think that the most successful initial engagements that I've seen are where people are embracing this in such a way that I'm going to use the agent as my co-pilot or my coworker or my assistant or my buddy, and I will give it some tasks and I'll help it along the way because why? It's making my job easier.
Yeah.
I can work faster. I can do things a lot quicker. I mean, you've seen these, I don't know if you use Otter.ai, the AI note taker, for instance.
I do, yes.
Yeah, people just go to meetings, run that, and so now they can do two things at the same time. So was the line blurred? I don't know. I mean, I like to think that I have a twin of some sort when I go to work.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into there's some other questions I have around like the idea of developing a personality around those agents, but I want to ask you a somewhat technical question. It's not really too super technical, but with the release of new reasoning models, and we're seeing the next phase beyond some of the first language models that were coming out. Now we're seeing these quote unquote reasoning models, including the new one from the Chinese company, and I believe Alibaba has also just recently come out with one as well. So, does that actually help in your development of these digital employees or other companies that are working on like the phase beyond what we might be getting now?
100%. And here's how specifically. Yeah. Each model brings something different to the scene. It's diversity. When you open a company, do you only hire one type of engineer, one type of employee, or do you do a better job as a company when you have diverse set of candidates coming from different, backgrounds? That's what this is to me. When we use when we're working, we use a number of different models because each one does a better job. And I can speak specifically to my domain, but I'm sure that this is true for anybody building digital employees or agentic workflows. So what this gives us the power now to do is to use a lot of different models to attack a problem, and each one will attack a problem in a slightly different way. And we're finding that we can find answers a lot quicker and in more creative ways. That's one angle in which this changes things. The other angle is it dramatically changed the cost structure for us. Running models aren't cheap. They burn GPU and they burn compute. And so when we create a digital employee, we have to think about how we're fueling that digital employee, because it's really not cheap at all to run any task that the employee has to do. It can take sometimes, a minute, 2 minutes, and all that is money that the company that's building the employee like us, we're footing the bill for that. And so this changes our cost structure, which means that we can do a lot more work, a lot more cost effectively. So both of these things are moving, the needles are moving in the right direction.
Okay, and in what areas of a company do you see these digital employees that are going to? Where are we going to see these deployed first? Obviously you've done work in the IT space and some of the other technical roles like engineering and things like that. But are we going to see this in maybe product design or accounting, sales, marketing? I think I would love to have one of these agents working for me in the accounts payable department so that we could get some people paid faster. But things like that, or even administration. Where are these, or is it going to start first with some of these mundane technical? And I don't want to call them not departments, but some of the tasks that are within those departments. I don't want to put down a department.
There are two angles in which you're asking this question. Your first one is what industries will it be deployed in?
Oh, I didn't ask that. Yeah. So, but yeah, go ahead. Pretend I did.
Yeah, and then within the industry, because you said, is it going to be in sales, marketing, or job function? So, in what sort of job functions will it be deployed in? And then within that job function, what criticality, what level of, is it going to work on a super important task as opposed to low-hanging fruit? So in terms of the industry, I think it's all over the place. So because you mentioned your accounts payable, for instance, which is completely different from what we do. But yeah, I'm seeing these agents be deployed in accounting, back office functions. I remember even as of last year, the CEO of IBM had mentioned a lot of their back office functions were being run by digital employees. And now this is IBM, which is one of the leaders in AI, and understandable there. But if that's happening there, that's going to trickle its way down to everybody else. And in terms of how critical of a function, well, look, it's Tesla has autopilot, and it's do people just completely trust it? Most people still kind of are hesitant and have their hands on the wheel with autopilot. So it will take time for people to say what level of the most important task am I going to trust the agent for. They have to see many years of success.
Yeah,
I think that's going to take time. So all this to say, it'll start with lower functions and then move its way up.
All right. So yeah, I mean, you bring up an excellent point here with the issue of trust. How. If a digital employee comes up with the answer to a question, or is asking along the way, or is sort of like, I did this and now can I do the next part or whatever? How does a human then know that this answer is correct and worth pursuing? Getting into this whole idea of explainability and transparency, it feels like a lot of this was missing in some of these early chatbots, and there was this leap of faith that I think a lot of people were making. Does agents require more trust, or is it going to be another leap of faith for people?
In my opinion, it's a must. The transparency and explainability is a must. It's just like when you're talking to a human engineer or a human coworker, and you ask that human coworker a question, you're kind of reading their body language. You're not just taking it for, and there's a lot of different indicators you take into account before you trust what they're saying and you're going to act upon what they're saying. And the same way here with digital agents, well, there's probably no body language, at least not right now, until we can create synthetic bodies for them. But you're going to look for some other element of trust, and that is in what we call chain of thought reasoning. I'd like to see your chain of thought. Like you started with this problem and you came up with this answer. I don't want to see a black box from start to end. I need to see your steps along the way. And when you go to school and you're learning math and the teacher gives you a problem,
right.
Well, they're asking for you to show you the steps that you took. Show me the work that you did to get to the answer. And so that's necessary with these agents. That's one. Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
The other reason important is that there's always a human in the loop. The agents can benefit from the reinforced feedback. So if I came up with the wrong answer, don't tell me my final answer is wrong. Tell me where along the way I went wrong.
Yeah.
So the next time I can surgically correct that specific chain of thought.
Interesting. Yeah. So at least initially, we're going to have that those chain of thoughts, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, getting back to that personality question for a second, do you think actually, including a personality for these things would be helpful? Or do we as humans still need to treat these things as like, it's just a toaster, or it's just, how much in our mental capacity do we need to start treating them like they're a part of the team, so to speak? Or, because I treat coworkers a lot differently, I think, than I treat the toaster.
Well, Keith, this is a really important, topic for me at least, because number one, look, my domain is in engineering, right? Newbert is an engineering company, and I can speak for us, and I'm sure the same is true for other departments. You brought up finance and probably back office functions, but first of all, there could be, engineers have different personalities, and different engineers there are engineers that like very verbose responses.
Right.
There are engineers that like hey, just give me the answer. Okay.
Right.
So the way in which these digital employees interface with their human coworkers, that's an important concept. I'll give you an example. You're hiring for a job. Two people come in with seemingly the same resumes, great schools, same experience. One walks out with a job and the other doesn't. Why? It's mostly because probably the personality of one of them clicked with you and not the other. So when you're interviewing digital employees, which you will, we won't be the only ones in our domain, you'll pick one over the other, and most likely we're all producing good enough results. And it probably in some cases will boil down to personality, that you liked how the personality of one agent appeared over the other. So these agents have to learn with who they're dealing with and communicate what they want to communicate, not in the way they've been trained, but adapt to how the person wants to hear the answer. So
you brought up another great point of you're saying that the companies are going to end up having to interview different digital employees. Like, that's not going to go like a regular human employee interview, right? Like, I figured that the company would just deploy them, is there going to be like a store where you pick them from? Or, is a digital employee going to be sending out resumes, and that's even more people I have to compete with?
I don't want to make it sound like the future is here right now.
No, I know. This can be 10, 15, 20 years in the future, right?
Yeah, I'll give you this as an example. Our digital employee has a LinkedIn profile, okay, and has been given job offers based on the resume.
Okay.
And can I see a point down the line where it is responding to online job questionnaires or quizzes, or you have to pass the first interview? Well, maybe you would have to do that. And I think what is the format in which you would interview this digital employee? Well, I think every digital employee will have to submit itself for an interview process. And in our case, that could be a very quick, hey, ask me a question about your environment. I'll give you an answer. Let's see if I can solve the problem. And the same may be true for, again, finance, sales, marketing. The more that the digital employee can showcase their powers, this also helps build trust for people hiring.
It also seems like at that point we would have to put some kind of physical representation, whether it's an avatar or whether it's an actual physical, like a robot type thing, right? Because it would just be weird. Doesn't it feel weird to you just that you'd be getting a resume and like this is a digital being that can do a lot of stuff, but it's not, like who does it belong to? Does it belong to Newbert? Does it belong to Company X? Is that what we're going to be seeing? Is that all these companies are going to be like, hey, hire our digital employees?
Yeah, look, that's for people. I'm old enough that I don't get.
There's so many different philosophical and ethical things that we could go down, but I understand that we don't want to kind of go down that rabbit hole, but that's just fascinating.
I'm happy to. I'm just trying to say that, look, the people that are entering the workforce in this digital employee era, the human engineers, the human employees entering the workforce now, for them to sort of make that decision as to how they want to interface with their digital coworkers, how do they want to be exposed to their personality or influence their personality? Because you could have these employees come in, maybe they're vanilla and they'll learn, they'll adapt their personalities. Unlike humans, these things they can learn based on the environment they're working in and adapt to their coworkers.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's definitely going to happen.
Has your digital employee won Employee of the Month yet? Not yet. But is that
yet.
something that's going to happen at some point too? Is it going to become like this workplace dynamic?
I think like any employee gets ranked.
Yeah.
I think digital employees will get ranked, and that's understandable because you have key metrics. We're in the IT domain, and you always have key metrics that hiring managers are measuring their entire workforce by. In our case, in our industry, it's called mean time to incident response, which
Yeah.
is when you have an IT type issue, how fast are you able to resolve it? And so I'm pretty sure our engineer will be ranked by that. Are you actually reducing the mean time to incident response? I don't know what that measurable variable is for finance or accounting or marketing, but I'm sure all of them have some, example of that.
Okay. All right. So let's ask. Let me ask about the time frame. When do you see this getting be either more mainstream or people starting to deploy them? Is it happening this year? Is it next year? Does the infrastructure need to change? Do the models need to get better? Is it something that companies can look into right now, or do they need to wait? Because a lot of this stuff that's around it feels like that the technology is there that can complete it, but all of the other stuff seems really kind of bizarre and weird.
I think in the year 2024, last year, a lot of companies like us were building the digital employees. We worked alongside key partners. By partners, I mean early adopters, customers that had a burning need, and they helped shape what the employee would do. To answer your question, I think the year of this year, 2025, would be the year where people are starting to adopt it and start bringing onboarding digital employees to work alongside human engineers to get a feel for what it's like. Is it actually solving the problem? Is it actually helping my human engineers? Are my human engineers trusting their coworkers? That's going to be this year, maybe next year. As always, this will start out, like in my opinion, like cloud computing started. It's still ongoing, the journey to cloud. And how long has that been here? And I remember when it first started, almost everybody were skeptics and said, no, we're never going to go off-prem. Everything is on-prem. We're never going to the cloud. But, there was such a compelling event of moving to the cloud that it was inevitable. And today, look how big the cloud providers are.
I've learned to try to not to be. I'm skeptical on a lot of things, but I've learned not to be like so skeptical that I would say, oh, this is never going to happen, because I think in the history of technology, so many people have been burned by those types of statements. So I'm open to this idea. I just think I don't know if it needs to be explained to me a little bit better, or start seeing examples of companies and digital employees doing some really cool things. Do you like the term digital employee better than AI agent or agentic AI? I mean, will that help drive this idea forward more, or does it need to be even a different term beyond what we've already kind of brought up?
People smarter than me in marketing and term creation will solve that problem. I don't have a strong opinion on this, because when something so new is being formed, the last thing you want to do is impede the technology by having an opinion on what do I call this?
Yeah.
Let's focus on what can it do. But people have been calling it digital employees. People have been calling. See, agent. For me, agentic workflows is the method in which you create the digital employee. So one's a method, one is what you're calling an employee. We call it today digital employees. Is that name going to stick? I don't know. People call it agents, co-pilots, assistants. Any of those are fine by me.
Okay.
But the key distinction here is that it's built through AI that's based on Gen AI through LLMs, because it's that creative aspect and the collaborative aspect and the reasoning aspect that's distinct from traditional AI.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier, Gu, that there was a range of people, like you've got skeptics and you've got the people that are really hyping it up and optimistic about it. Where do you fit on this timeline of range? Like, are you somewhere in the middle, or are you more optimistic about this idea or this concept? And I'm going to lean you towards
talking about me as me personally.
Yeah, you
Like,
personally.
look, since I'm, I'm in this space, and so
Right.
clearly very bullish about this. Look, I've always been, going back to my cloud example. For me, it was kind of obvious, that everything's going to move to the cloud, and yeah, everybody, I remember back then, management would come in and say, how are you so bullish about this? It's so expensive. It's so, but then you're like, but if you look at the benefits of it, people will pay, and people have that discretionary capital because we are a society where we're not going to be constrained by budget. This is just America in general. I'm talking about. We're so hungry for innovation, and let's move fast. And we're such a fast-paced society that cost typically doesn't hold us back. And so where I'm going with this is, now that was a cost argument in cloud.
Yeah.
So hungry to move so fast in innovation and putting new product out there that the last thing we're going to let us hold us back is, hey, there aren't enough computer science graduates, therefore that's not us. That we'll
right.
find a say, well, let's fix that problem, because I, at the end of the day, need to create new product. I need to move fast. And when I'm talking like another company. And so they'll hire these digital employees, whether there's internal resistance or not. There's a greater cause, and the greater cause is I have to build better product.
Right.
I have to acquire more customers. I have to just keep innovating and move fast.
So how do you avoid the trap of hyping something up so much that then people's expectations get so high, and then they get a chance to try it and they go, or they go, well, that's it, or that that isn't what was promised. And I think we see that across the space, not just in this, not in this, because we really haven't seen a lot of AI agents yet. I mean, a lot of them are being worked internally with companies, but initially with a lot of the ChatGPT chatbots that came out, there was a lot of like, okay, this is cool and it feels like magic, but then as more and more people started asking questions and testing it, some of these people go like, well, okay, that's not really it, or it's wrong, or the answers are wrong. And so you get into that almost trough of disillusionment thing, to borrow another term.
Keith, if you ask me what worries me a lot about this space, it's exactly that. It's one bad apple can ruin the bunch. And we, at least at Newbird, we're very clear in what our employee can and can't do. It has a long way to go.
Right.
I'm not here to say it can solve all problems. But I'm very comfortable in disclosing the level of problems it can solve. And so, but it'll get better as it gets trained, as it gets more feedback, as it learns from its human counterparts. So in a couple of years, it'll be a lot smarter. So what I'm trying to say is, I hope everybody in our industry that are building these agents will be truthful to what their agents can do and not overhype it, because people aren't stupid. They'll test it out and they'll say, hey, they'll draw a broad paint a broad picture, say all agents are bad, which isn't the case.
Right.
So, but is that that's out of some of that is out of my control. That will happen. There will be overhype. There will be a period of mistrust, and then maybe people you'll overcome that again, and eventually, we kind of know where it's going, but from where we are to where we need to be is not going to be a straight line.
All right. So does your digital employee have email access? and does your digital employee reply to all on all the on all the congratulations emails?
We actually you joke, but we try to make one thing that we really focus on, and now this is just specific to Newbird, and I think most good agentic workflow should follow this. You have to know or train the models to say, I can't answer, or I don't know, or I won't do this. And that is way more important, in my opinion, today than coming up with an answer. And I'm okay with our employee. I'll even say 6 times out of 10, if it says, I can't answer this, that's better. But the fourth, answers that it does give better be spot on.
Yeah. That's a great point. I've seen this before with chatbots, for example. It feels like the chatbot wants to do such a good job for the human input operator. You know, like they were like I want to give you all of this information that I have, and you ask it a question and it comes up with 3 or 4 paragraphs because it just wants to be your friend so much. So and then the only times I've seen where it doesn't answer something is usually because of a guardrail that was brought in, and it says like, I can't do that because you're trying to get it to do something that's bad or that's quote unquote evil. But like, you know, I've never actually seen an answer from an AI that just goes, I don't know. And that's what actually would make something more human like, right?
The benefit of what we do, guardrails are important, but it can't be just empty guardrails because the company that built the employee doesn't want to get in trouble. In our domain, luckily for us, we have implicit guardrails and explicit guardrails. The implicit ones for us are, well, we're always dealing with numerical data, right? Our engineer deals with IT telemetry. The answer is there somewhere in the data.
Okay.
So when our engineer comes up with the answer, it's easy for it to fact check itself because it can go back and say, wait a second, was it 3 milliseconds or was it 30 milliseconds? That 0 didn't get hallucinated.
Right.
It'll go back to the database and say it's 3 milliseconds. And so it has the ability to fact check itself before it comes up with an answer. If somebody's asking it a question to go look for something that it either exists or doesn't exist, and if it doesn't exist, it can come back and say, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I can't find it.
All right, this is a fascinating topic, and Gu, I want you to come to our studios and do an episode of demo so we can see how the Nubird thing works. You've got an open invite, so if you're ever in the area, come on in, okay?
Thank you so much, Keith. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks again for being on the show, and that's all the time we have for this episode. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.